Welcome to the third European e-commerce conference organized by EMOTA and EDIMA to promote a fruitful discussion among key European policymakers and stakeholders regarding the development of a single market for goods and digital service for Europe. I'm delighted to see that our topic and our high-level speakers attracted such a large audience. The European e-commerce market has shown an impressive growth in 2011 in spite of the difficult general economic conditions. In many advanced economies, the majority of consumers buy online, and e-commerce already represents close to 10% of total retail trade. However, there are still major differences across countries, especially between northern, Central European countries, where internet is already a fundamental channel to buy goods and services, and southern eastern ones, where e-commerce is still in its infancy stage. In addition, cross-border sales currently represent only a small percentage of online transactions, as most consumers don't buy abroad because they are concerned about potential frauds or are uncertain of their rights. In parallel, only 1/4 of retailers are selling abroad due to logistics issues and to difference in legal fiscal rules. The European Commission and Parliament are currently very active in solving these issues in order to reach the ambitious goals set in the digital agenda. That is, 50% of all consumers buying online and 20% across borders by 2015.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is James Waterworth. I'm currently President of the European Digital Media Association. I'm going to pose a question now to all of you, and it's a question also to all the panelists who are currently here and all the panelists who will come up later today. And the question is this. In 2010, a man called Mario Monti presented a report to President Barroso about the single market. And part of what he talked about in his single market report was about the digital single market and underlining its potential, which we fervently believe in, for growth. Now, Mario Monti is, of course, very much in the headlines for different reasons, but his job is almost the same, except he really is in charge of trying to stimulate growth in one of Europe's economies that most needs growth. So I will be very interested to hear the perspective of all of today's contributors as to how they see our sector, the e-commerce sector, contributing to growth. So I'm going to keep reminding everyone of that challenge.
Well, as it seems, they don't have enough confidence. I mean, in all our surveys, consultations, studies, one thing that comes out consistently is that lack of trust, and that prevents consumers as well as business from engaging more into this. So it's one of the key issues to be addressed.
And what do you think can be done to inspire consumer confidence? Is it more technological solutions like e-signatures, or is it just education?
I think it's a combination of many things. Yeah, those that you already mentioned, but they also need to trust in payment services. They need to have trust in what happens if things go wrong. So will I get reimbursed? Can I send my stuff back and get it repaired, replaced? So I think we have to work on a lot of issues simultaneously if we want to gain the trust of citizens in this.
We're here today at the e-commerce conference in Brussels, and joining us is the Consumer Commissioner from the European Commission. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me on your program.
Let's start off with the idea of the digital single market. Obviously, consumers should have the opportunity to buy anywhere in the EU. Would you agree with that in principle?
Well, I agree with it, and not only agree with it, but we are doing our utmost to make this a reality. Because although we talk about the single market, we talk about cross-border purchases online, this is not happening in Europe. Only 9% of our consumers shop online across border, although 40% are shopping online within their own country, which is a good sign. But we feel that a single digital market would enhance consumers' requirements. They will give them better prices, they will give them more choice, and generally I believe it's extremely beneficial to them.
Well, this is a very small figure, this 9%. Do you think that is because of fears about security or data privacy or things like that?
No, I believe that those people who don't normally shop online have these fears of privacy of data, have the fears that there will be no deliveries, have the fears of quality of products. But I believe many of our consumers are getting now used to shopping online, and these type of fears are not there anymore. And the fears that exist in those who shop online is more on the issue of quality of the goods delivered and whether the delivery is going to take place at all. So this is where businesses have really to concentrate, and making also, as far as online digital retail is concerned, the accessibility of products across border, because some of the retailers restrict shipping of their goods to certain countries, even those within Europe.
Yes, we sometimes see these signs on our internet saying, not available in your country.
No, the worst is that you go through all the process and then when you finally come to the last screen and make your address, it says it's not available in that country, it cannot be shipped.
And do you think that's because some businesses are worried about the laws, because we have 27 different member states and therefore an awful lot of different laws governing things like returns or refunds and so on?
That can also be the case, and this is why also my colleague, Vice President Reding, has been working on this issue, trying to coordinate the issue of consumer rights as much as possible, uplifting rights, especially where the rights are very low in perception. However, this is an ongoing project now which we're trying to bring to a termination.
And one final question then, to make it easier for consumers online, we've discussed some legislation issues. I mean, do you think it's going to be easy to overcome issues like language, different currencies for those that are not in the euro, and even just culture of shopping online?
Well, I believe that all these issues can be solved. There are solutions for all of these issues. Our currency and banking institutions and financial institutions can handle the flow of monies and different currencies. I believe that there need to be a better education, and the consumer needs to be more comfortable in shopping online. This is why also we are very soon going to take a very important initiative in putting forward proposals on alternative dispute resolution, but also enveloping them also on an online platform, so that even if a consumer is shopping across border, he doesn't need to be knowledgeable on the institutional arrangements of the various 27 countries. He could simply put his complaint or his request on this online platform, and then he will be directed to the best way and the best organization to whom they can make their complaint.
Well, the e-commerce market across Europe has developed very fast in the last few years. The sales online have doubled in the last 5 years, and 2011 has been an impressive year in terms of growth rates. In many markets, e-commerce already represents close to 10% of total retail. But there are still many issues, especially if you consider that Northern and Central European countries have a very high e-commerce penetration, whereas e-commerce is still in its infancy stage in Southern, Eastern European countries. Concerning the legislation, the European Commission and Parliament have been very active to reach the ambitious goal of the digital agenda, which set a target of 20% of cross-border e-commerce by 2015, which is a very difficult target to reach. As a matter of fact, currently we are just at 9%. And there have been very recently important initiatives like the new Consumer Rights Directive, which has harmonized consumer rights across Europe and improved the price transparency. And even more recently, the new common sales law, which will provide an optional tool to standardize contract law in all the European countries.
Well, you're right to identify that the current financial crisis needs strong policy, and we think that the digital single market is one of the only things that can lead to economic growth and job growth. And there's two figures I'd like to provide you with. Number one of the studies by Copenhagen Economics, which has shown that over 10 years, the digital single market could add 4% or 500 billion euros to European GDP, which is obviously a lot of money. And secondly, that the role of internet platforms, and the association that I represent works for internet platforms, is to contribute in the region of 350 billion euros per year to the European economy. I think we're going to be going for 5 to 10 years at least in terms of trying to get this right, but the seeds that we sow in the next 12 to 24 months during this European Commission will be the seeds which lead to the transformation over the next 5 to 10 years. So it's very important that policymakers act, they act rapidly, and that they are not scared of potential vested interests who may be concerned about the opening of their markets, because the long-term economic benefits for all of us far outweigh some short-term losses.
I think what we see in Europe through the data monitor reports and through the scoreboards of the European Commission, we see three major obstacles for consumers. It has to do with payments, I would say belief in this payment security. It's about fraud. The second thing that comes up, and it accounts for more than 50%, is delivery problems. They usually use other channels of delivery, and they can't. And the third one is when they got the thing delivered or non-delivered, but when they got it delivered, it might not work. So the problem with the product itself. So they have to return it, and they do not know who is there behind this web shop or what. And that's why the European law has now a consumer rights directive to implement all these things. That's from a consumer perspective. From the e-tailer perspective, so the electronic tailor or the m-tailer, the problem is the languages. That's first. He can, of course, decolocalize his shop, but he should use another language. It's also about payment security facilities, and it's about delivery, mostly.
Well, there are 500 million people out there. We are all consumers in Europe, in all our 27 member states. Of course, we should focus on consumer-friendly legal offers in the digital era. And to me, this is a key issue. Well, we need to either harmonize or make it at least easier for the legal service providers to run their businesses all over Europe. And to me, well, I have a pan-European perspective on everything that I do. So to me, it's unrealistic and not credible that Europe in the 21st century has not managed to offer the citizens the same legal products, the same cultural content all over Europe. And we should really focus on that, because it will also take Europe into prosperity beyond these days of crisis that we are in right now.
Obviously, digital services and digital products that consumers may want to buy fall under a slightly different category to physical objects. Do you think legislation is keeping up with these new developments?
No, it's not. Let's take a physical product that's become digital, books. So if I live in the UK, I have the right to buy a certain author. If I live in the Netherlands, I don't. It's a physical product that's become digital. It's easy to distribute. Within 60 seconds, I can buy a book from anywhere in the world and read it. But it depends on which country I live in. It's like we layer knowledge. So legislation is not keeping up with the way the world has evolved, the way we've evolved in a digital sense, and in terms of what consumers want. And the only thing that distinguishes consumers from one part in Europe to another, so if I'm in Zlin in the Czech Republic versus Amsterdam or London, the only thing that distinguishes us is supply chain. If it's available, we'll consume the same products. But if we even on a digital sense, do not make it available to consumers, how would they consume it? How do we grow consumption across Europe when we ourselves are not allowing our consumers to consume?
Well, we're here today to talk about promoting the European digital market. One of the things that sometimes causes consumers to be afraid of buying online is concerns about data privacy or online payments. How can you convince them to be more confident in this?
So the reality is consumers are buying online more and more, and the reason is websites and services such as eBay are providing them with tools and services so that they can trust the services they buy. Whether that's more information, whether that's feedback systems such as eBay, whether that's buyer protection services, etc. But it is true that consumers will only go and buy where they know that they're getting the best service, where they're getting the best warranties, where they're getting the best insurance, that if something went wrong, they would get their money back. And it's important that suppliers provide those kind of assurances.
And do you think things like a renewal of the e-signatures directive and legislation at an EU level can help inspire confidence in technological solutions?
So I think the e-signatures directive would be one example. However, even before that, one of the key concerns consumers have is that the legislation in different European markets is so different. They have a difficulty navigating the rules and regulations of those markets. So before moving to an e-signatures directive, I would actually say, let's harmonize the rules that are already governing e-commerce in Europe, so the consumer knows that a warranty in Germany is the same as a warranty in Spain, that a returns policy in the UK is the same as a returns policy in Italy. Once you've done that, you can then move on to further services such as signatures.
Today we see, looking at payments, that payments are cultural. People have their own habits. In every single country there is a history around payments. Some countries prefer bank transfer, some countries prefer credit card, some other debit cards. And we at PayPal are enabling a variety of funding sources into a unique experience. So we bridge the variety of people, the variety of needs, with the need of a single market. But what we believe ultimately is also in collaboration with law enforcement authorities, collaboration with other stakeholders of the internet, and education. What we can bring is technological knowledge, but also is the knowledge of both consumers and merchants. As being a closed-loop system, we have a unique position, knowing what are the needs of consumers throughout the world, and knowing what are the needs of businesses, large businesses, but also very small businesses that are really the engine of growth of e-commerce of today.
Every year at the e-commerce conference, we present an award for an exceptional contribution to e-commerce industry in general, the e-commerce framework. And this person has therefore, through that work over the last 10 years, made an exceptional contribution to the flourishing of this industry in the European Union, and indeed to the other countries around the world who have mimicked and copied with pride the European rules which have given such life to this industry. So the 2011 award for an exceptional contribution to the e-commerce industry goes to Jean Bergevin. Jean.
Thank you very much. Well, do I have a minute to say something? I do, right, okay. I was warned by these that I would get this, and I'm not into preparing long speeches or whatever, but I'd like to, first of all, thank you heartily for it. I was part of a team. It was certainly not solely my effort, but it has been 11 years. I'm now dealing with IPR enforcement, so I won't leave e-commerce. And my colleague Werner Steng, who's there, the story is don't stay too long or you'll get more of these. No, anyway, but thanks very much indeed. And it's very rare to have this, and I will certainly put it on the decks. And it's a very, very nice trophy. Thanks very much. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you. Thank you very much.